Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. And today I want to talk about the money that people need to gather before they start traveling, and why it is way less than you think it is. First of all, the cost of living is less in other countries. If you're from the US or any wealthier country, you're going to be paying up to 90% less just by landing in the other country. And that's a pretty important reason, that you just don't have to pay the same costs that you're paying in your country. On the flip side of that, though, is a little more subtle. Why are you traveling? If you are traveling so that you can learn things and have new experiences and get out into the world and broaden your mind and connect with the people of the world. If you're doing that stuff, you need very little money. If you're having actual experiences, if you want to travel for new experiences, for new learning opportunities, you need a few $100s a month, because hostels are about $100 a month to stay in, $3 to $4. The most expensive ones will be $10 a month, so still $300 a month. And food is up to $10 a day, but it can be very cheap. Sandwiches are usually less than $1 in many countries. So if you want to travel so that you can stay at an expensive hotel, you can stay at an expensive hotel at home. You can spend that money on that. But if you want to travel for the new experiences, then you don't need much money at all. There are hostels in almost every country. I mean, there are hostels in every country, but there are available and cheap hostels in almost every country. And like I said, there are $100 for a dorm bed in there, and then there are $7 for a private room to $10 for a private room if you need your own space. But I would suggest not getting your own space when you're starting to travel, especially. I made so many connections and relationships because I was in a dorm style or more social setting, like a communal hostel. In fact, it's not a guess to hazard. I definitely made most of my friends traveling because I was just in a hostel. When you're next to someone else and they're eating a snack, oh, what's that? And boom, you guys are talking. If you guys click, you're friends. If you don't, you don't. If you have any kind of remote work now, and it's supporting your life in any capacity in the States or Western Europe or one of the more expensive countries, then you are already making more than enough money to travel perpetually in most other countries of the world. All of Southeast Asia is that cheap. A lot of parts of Western Europe are actually very cheap. Actually, even like France and Germany, if you just get places that are out of the way, it's still only $500 a month for a private house and stuff. It's very surprising how cheap the actual necessities are. Because when you're traveling, you don't have all the other, maybe there's $10 here or like $20 there, or we have to tip this waitress or whatever the heck, because most countries don't have tipping. It's a weird American thing. But what you need is a place to sleep. You need food and then fun. And the place to sleep, like I said, dorms, 100, 150 maybe per month. Food, maybe $10 a day. So say $400 to $500 a month. And then you need the plane ticket there. And if you're flying from like Portugal to Morocco, it's like $20 plane ticket. If you're flying from any country to another adjoining country, it's never going to be more than $50 to get there. If you want to fly all the way across the world, it's still only LA to Hong Kong is about $270. So you're not exactly breaking the bank, especially if you end up staying in Hong Kong or an adjacent country. If you end up staying in East Asia for 2 months, then that transportation cost to get over there is cut in half, and you only paid $135 for each country. If you stay there 3 months, then you've only paid $80 to get to each country. And the actual cost of living there is so cheap that even if you paid $300 a month, which you never would, to travel every month, that's $300 added onto maybe $500 if you're trying to be frugal. So $800 a month for everything included is obviously much less than you would pay for an apartment and food in the States. And I stayed there for a year. So my transportation costs were one ticket over there, spread out among 12 months. So I paid like $30 a month for a year of a very low cost of living, a beautiful country, nice people, and learning new things every day. Oh, and great food. Like, great food. Every country you go to, the food is new and great every time. The basics are not as expensive as people tell you. Speaking of the low cost, there are many, many countries that you don't need a visa for at all. And then there are about 180 countries where you do need a visa, but you can just get it on arrival for $20 and then go right into the country for 3 months, 6 months. It just depends on the country. And if you want to get the visa beforehand, it is even easier. I usually get mine beforehand because it's so convenient. I don't have to wait in line at the airport. But visas are a 15-minute process that costs $20 to $30 usually. You fill out a form online, pay the fee, they email you a visa, you're good to go. It's not an expensive or onerous process. And like I said, if you have any kind of remote work and it's supporting you in a country that's a little more expensive, then you can support yourself very easily. Like if you're making more than $1,000 per month, you're set. I lived very frequently on a few $100s for years, on like $300 a month. I taught English online. I just had conversations with people, and I'd get $220 into my bank account or whatever every month. And I was just casual conversations. I did that. And I had traveled for a few years by that point, so I knew these costs. And I had enough money for years. I did that for 2 years straight, about just traveling to different countries, talking on the phone to random people and getting a few dollars each conversation. And that was more than enough to get a train, a plane, or a bus to a different country. Sometimes I would meet people and I drove over in their car to another country. It was enough money to buy all the food I needed and to pay for my bed at night. Now, I know everybody doesn't want to live like that. That's definitely just how I like that raw, gritty, sand between my toes kind of feeling of, I don't know, what would you call bare bones traveling? Like bare bones backpacking, BBB. And I like that triple B lifestyle. But if you make twice that much, if you make $600 a month instead of the $300 a month I was making, then you can have a private room, twice the amount of food, and, you know, your own kitchen, and you can get a nicer bus between places. So by the time you're at 1,000, you basically have all the conveniences and comforts you could want. So if you have a remote job that is paying you close to 1,000, you're well over your limit. If you have remote work that could pay you $500 a month, you're totally set. You should go. If traveling is the most important thing. Obviously, if your values align more with saving up a nest egg or something like that, or if you're in dire need of money for some emergency fund, then you can't do this immediately. But if you're just thinking, boy, I have to save money before I start traveling, I only have $1,000, nope, you can start traveling. Because again, it's priorities. Traveling, learning new experiences, connecting with people, learning all that stuff, you just got to get out there. That's the main thing. You need to get a passport, then you need to buy a ticket. If your main point is traveling and having these new experiences, then you can get a job teaching overseas very easily and start traveling and have money for as long as you want, as long as you're traveling. All right, so that's how much money you actually need. You need a few hundred, like $200 or $300 to have a roof over your head and have enough food per month. 500, 600, you can usually get a private room and obviously better food and, more experiences. You can pay for the taxi to the volcano or whatever if you're in Guatemala. 1,000, you're good. You'll definitely have a private house. You'll have all the food you want and you can go do whatever you want every day. The thing is, hanging out and not doing anything is also a big part of traveling. Relax. You got out of the rat race, so you can spend a few days, just eat your favorite sandwich in the neighborhood and watch movies or whatever, read books or comics on your phone or your laptop. And then every day you're not doing something, you're also saving money for your budget. So if getting those experiences in is the main thing, then you can provide for achieving those experiences with minimal effort. Now, if you don't have a remote job, most countries you can go to will hire you on as an English teacher. You can get the TEFL certification for $40, international lifetime certification, and then you can teach as much or as little as you want, literally 5 hours a week. But 5 hours for $20 an hour, which is what you'll get with zero experience, is $400 a month. And that's enough. And if you're like, I'll work 10 hours a week, then you have 800 and now you're having fun. And if you want to work a full-time job, you can. And just save money. That's what I did in the beginning. I worked closer to 40 hours per week, but I just saved all that money. And because I saved and invested that money, I'm living off the dividends from that investment now. You don't have to wait for someone to give you the privilege of traveling. You get the document. You get your passport. You find a job that will pay you a few hundred per month. Find a remote work. There are 3,000 listings right now, and any one of those will give you a few $100s per month in exchange for probably much less time than you're spending at your job now in the States and barely making ends meet. Or in a city in Germany, in Hamburg or Lisbon in Portugal or whatever. That job that you're killing yourself for, if you're killing yourself so that you can eventually travel, you're using way too much effort. You can skip the societal line and start traveling. If traveling is what you do, then you support your traveling. Don't keep planning to live. Start living the way you want to live, and then fund that. If your point is that you don't have $500 for the air ticket and the first, the first month of rent and food, one, you can teach English online. There are 1,000 positions available, literally, and you can just start doing that tomorrow. If you get the TEFL certification, then you'll definitely teaching English as a foreign language. They'll hire you right on. Alaska has tons of salmon canning jobs. Go on Craigslist, anything, literally any job that'll get you $500. You can start traveling on that. And if you're traveling to travel, then you can fund that with the jobs that are abroad. I always recommend teaching because it's so easy to get into if you're a native English speaker, and it pays well, and you don't have to work very much. And you can choose exactly how much you want to work and how much money you want to earn. I'm sure there is some terrible circumstance that is preventing some people from doing this, but none of the people who ask me in real life, can I travel, have I had to say no to. I've never been like, oh no, you don't have enough money, or you don't have the willpower, you don't have the chutzpah, you're not brave enough to get out there. I've been asked that question, well, can I travel? Hundreds of times? I don't know, so many times. And, well, I don't know how I could do that. How could I do that? I've never had to tell someone oh, you can't, I'm sorry, you only have one leg. No, there are plenty of physically disabled people traveling. Oh, you have a chronic illness? Well, you can get the equivalent medication to whatever you're using now in another country, and you'll get quality medical care for a much cheaper price. Save money, get a passport, get a ticket out there. Let's look at a couple of these costs real quick. So if we pull up Skyscanner right now, if you're leaving from the States, then Canada's $20, Mexico $20, pretty much all of Central South America. I mean, all of Central America is $50. South America, let's see once we're out of there. Iceland is $120 right now. England is $120. Yeah, so you can take $100, go to one of 50 countries tomorrow if you want to. If traveling is what is the most important thing to you, if learning more about the world and making these connections with new people, new loves, new relationships overall, just learning new things, just living in a new place is a startlingly beautiful experience. And I think if that is what you want, you should do it. And I know you can.